This thing. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. نويت التعلم التعليم وتذكر التذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. أما بعد، فالسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising and thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to continue with our classes of knowledge. I know we started last week with some of the classes, but this is the first week since the end of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, we have the opportunity to continue with our fiqh class. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to act upon the knowledge that we gain through our class, through this class and whatever other classes we are attending. Ameen, inshallah. Right. So, in our last class, we basically started with the chapters on divorce. And divorce is an important chapter to study, as we mentioned, because many a times people, if they want to get divorced, they don't perhaps get divorced in the correct manner. Or sometimes you don't want to get divorced, but you say certain words and then you're divorced without you even realizing that those words actually have an impact, because you maybe thought that if you don't intend the divorce, you're just joking, and whatever the case may be, then the divorce does not fall. The Prophet ﷺ said there are three things that are taken very seriously. Of those things are divorce, meaning even when you joke, it is taken seriously. Now, so therefore it is important that we know the laws of divorce. And we said divorce is basically when you marriage is like a knot. It's a bond, it's a contract. And when you divorce, you are untying that knot, you're untying that connection, that bond of marriage. And the default ruling with regard to marriage is أبغض الحلال إلى الله الطلاق, that the most detested of permissible things to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is divorce. So it is makruh, it is not haram. However, there are times where it is wajib, there are times where talaq could even be wajib, as we will mention later inshallah. Talaq, divorce, can be wajib, it can be recommended, it can be permissible. And if a person does not have any good reason to divorce, then the default ruling is that it is makruh, it is something reprehensible, it is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is something that we should try and avoid. And we mentioned as well before that, divorce is the last resort. Right? A couple should try and do whatever they can to save the marriage. And if after trying everything, there is nothing, and basically what happens is, if we stay in this marriage, it will only lead to us resenting each other, not fulfilling each other's rights, basically becoming more distant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of the marriage, and there's no way of reconciliation and so forth. Then perhaps divorce would be the better option. But like we said, it is the last resort. After trying everything, if there's no way to mend and out of that difficulty except divorce, then inshallah there is no problem to get divorced. Now, so we mentioned certain types of divorce. There is an explicit type of divorce where you use explicit wording, and in Arabic these are three basically root words. It is talaq, firaq, and sirah or sarah. So those are the three wording in Arabic. We generally know of talaq because that is the main word that is used to divorce. And if we translate it, then it will be translated as the actual word divorce. And divorce is also explicit. It is an explicit wording for divorce. And if you use the word divorce or talaq or firaq or sarah to divorce one's wife, then it will fall whether you intended divorce or you did not intend divorce. Maybe you just want to do make your wife scared, for example. You want to threaten her, and you told your wife you are divorced, but you did not intend it. Then your wife will be divorced. Why? Because you used explicit wording. We don't accept any excuse or any other interpretation when it comes to explicit wording, except if the context is very, very, very clear. We mentioned, for example, I'm teaching a class. So I teach a class and I give an example and I say to my wife, you are divorced. Maybe my wife is in the class and, but I'm making an example. All right? It's clear cut that I'm not intending the divorce at all. It's clear cut. All right? What we call that is a qarina. It is an evidence, the circumstance is an evidence that you're not intending divorce. So there the divorce will not fall unless I'm actually intending the divorce. So there is a place where you require intention, that you intend the effect of that wording. Now another example would be, I narrate a story of another person. I say I'm speaking to my wife and I'm telling my wife the story, for example, and I tell her that Fulan said to his wife, you are divorced. So they also said to my wife, you are divorced. But clearly I'm not, intending divorce. The circumstances, the context, the hikayah, I'm narrating somebody else's words, clearly shows there that I'm not directing that at my wife. So therefore, the divorce will not fall in that case unless I actually intended the divorce. All right. So there it could fall, but it's actually, you have to have an actual intention to divorce. But when there is no context, there is no clear cut. There's a clear circumstance shows that I'm not intending divorce. But when it's not clear, and I use these clear words of divorce, whether I address my wife directly, I tell my wife you are divorced, or if I tell a third person my wife is divorced, doesn't matter. You use clear wording. There is no clear cut that you are speaking about somebody else or you're making an example, just right. Then the divorce will fall. The divorce will fall whether you intended the divorce or whether you did not intend the divorce. So we have to be very, very careful with the words of divorce now. So that was the explicit wording. In Arabic, we'd say طلقتك or anti طالق. Right? Those are the two common phrases of divorcing one's wife. In today's time, we mix between the two. We say, I طلق you. I طلق you. Or I talak you sometimes. I still read it with a bit of tajweed. But generally people say, iktalak you, or I talak you. Right? So there was a fatwa that was sent to certain fatwa bodies around the world, especially one in Yemen, because there was this discussion of, in Arabic, talak, using the ta, lam, and kaf. But the words divorce is ta, lam, and qaf. Alright? So now, if I use wordings that don't indicate to divorce at all, and I intend divorce, then there's no divorce that falls. I make an example. I tell my wife, uh, you are small. This is just a far-fetched example. I tell my wife you are small, but I intend thereby divorce. Now, being small has nothing to do with divorce at all. It does not carry any meaning of divorce. But I intend the divorce by those words. Does the divorce fall? No, the divorce doesn't fall. Now, talak has perhaps a complete, in fact, our scholars speak about talaq with a qaf, and I think they speak about talaq with a kaf or something like that. Anyway, it has a completely different meaning, and therefore the discussion comes, does the divorce fall? Doesn't the divorce fall? Basically, the fatwa, there are two main opinions in the way we use it, because the word talak has become so widely used and widely known in our community. Anybody knows, if you say the iktalak you or I talak you, it carries in people's minds no other meaning except for divorce. Nobody understands it to mean something else or anything like that. So therefore, the ruling that the MJC and everybody basically goes on is that the words talak is a clear divorce. So if a person says to his wife, ik talak jou, or I talak you, and then afterwards he says, no, I did not intend divorce, and so forth, we're going to say, no, it falls, because in our community, talak is explicit. It carries no other meaning except for divorce. Now, however, to be on the safe side, if you person wants to divorce his wife, it is best for him to use, either he uses the English wording completely, I divorce you, or he uses the Arabic wording طلقتك or anti طالق. That would be the three best formulas to use. Not that we're encouraging divorce, obviously, we said that we're not encouraging, but if you are going to go that route, then rather use, either say it in English, I divorce you, and try to not use other wordings, that could be ambiguous and so forth. Just divorce straight, I divorce you, or طلقتك, or anti طالق. Now, you can say, please not say, don't translate it, because now it could be understood as two divorces. You say طلقتك, and then you say I divorce you as a translation. Just now it could be understood as two divorce, but it won't be considered two divorces if you just intended to, translate it, and because there is a thing as emphasis, which we will get to, inshallah. So that is explicit wording. All right? Explicit wording, even if you don't intend it, it will divorce. It will fall. The next type of divorce, which in terms of wording is what we call kinaya. Kinaya is an ambiguous form of divorce, meaning it is not clear cut. It has the possible meaning of divorce, and it has the possible meaning of something else. It has the possible meaning of something else. Like, for example, if a man tells his wife, maybe they have a argument, a heated argument, or they're having difficulties in his marriage, and he says to his wife, go back to your parents. Go back to your parents. Now, go back to your parents could mean go back to your parents because we are finished, we are divorced. Therefore, go back to your parents. Or go back to your parents could mean, no, go stay with your parents for a while. We need to take a break. We need to, you know, they say sometimes absence makes the heart grow fonder. So sometimes you need a bit of separation, to come back together again. So there's both possibilities. So if a man divorces his wife using those words, uh, go back to your parents, then he should be asked, what did you intend? So if you use this kinaya form, this unclear form, this non-explicit form of divorce, then the divorce will only fall with an intention to divorce. The divorce will only fall with an intention to divorce. If there is no intention to divorce, the divorce will not fall. The divorce will not fall. Right? However, men should not use this knowledge of kinaya and now play with the wives and make them think that they are divorced. Right? So that's why we don't want a person to use this kinaya forms unless he's going to explicitly tell his wife no, I intended divorce. What I meant by these words is divorce, and he doesn't delay. Because if he says, go back to your parents, and he intends divorce, then the lady is immediately under iddah. There are certain rules that now apply to her and so forth. Now, so we should try and use explicit wording and not wording that is not explicit. So any form of those wording where it carries the meaning of divorce and it possibly means something else, then the divorce will only fall with intention. And another example that would be, we are finished, or we are separated. All right? We are separated, or we are finished. Then that is not a clear form of divorce. The divorce will only fall with intention. Another example, a person says to his wife, I will divorce you. I will divorce you. Is that a divorce? So our scholars say, no, that is not a divorce. That is merely a promise to divorce. Now, when you promise your wife to divorce, it is not something which is binding, that now because you said the words I will divorce you, now khalas, now you have to now divorce her, you know. And she holds a gun to you and she's, no, you said you're going to divorce me, therefore you have to divorce me. No, if a person says he will divorce his wife, it is not binding upon him to actually carry out the divorce thereafter. It is not binding on him to carry out the divorce thereafter. However, know that our scholars do say when you make a promise of genuine of anything, whilst you are not perhaps sinful if you don't fulfill that promise, but you are sinful if you made that promise knowing that you're not going to fulfill that promise. Then you are sinful for lying. Right? Anything. A person promises, somebody invites me to a certain event. I promise that I will, I will be there by the event. But then this happens and that happens, and I don't end up going to the event. So then I broke the promise. Am I sinful? No, technically I'm not sinful. Yes, it's makruh not to fulfill promises. It is makruh not to fulfill promises. This is like reprehensible. However, if I made a promise knowing that I will not fulfill it, if I made a promise knowing that I will not fulfill it, then a person is basically sinful for lying. They are sinful for lying. Now, so inshallah, if you make promises, we should have sincere intention to fulfill those promises. We should have a sincere intention to fulfill those promises now. However, sometimes in the heat of the moment, a person could think, no, I will divorce you, that is in the best, and then afterwards, he changes his mind, not because just he changes his mind because he just wants to change his mind. No, he actually weighs up the pros and cons afterwards and he sees, no, it's actually better for us to stay married. So therefore, we're not going to say, no, it's wajib for you now to divorce your wife because you did say that you are going to divorce her now. And there are other forms. A person says to his wife, Anti ba'ina. Now, ba'ina is a term for a lady basically when a lady is divorced and you cannot remarry her during the iddah. You cannot take her back during not remarry, but you cannot take her back. You can't take back your divorce. And you say, I take you back as my wife, or raja'tuki, I take you back. Right? The default ruling is that divorce, you divorce her, your wife during the iddah, you can take her back as your wife without a new contract, But if the lady is divorced 3 times, or a khula' was given, which we explained before, a lady pays for a divorce, then she's what we call ba'ina. She is ba'ina, whereby the husband cannot take her back during the iddah with words. They need to get remarried. In certain cases, she needs to remarry somebody. She needs to get married to somebody else first and consummate the marriage, and then only he can, after divorce, and then he only can remarry. In other cases, no, he just needs to remarry. He can get remarried even during the iddah, like in the khula', he can get remarried during the iddah. Yes, we have a question.
Just wanted to ask about the period. If the person divorces one talaq and wants to get together again within the iddah period,
Yes.
then it is okay.
Yes.
However, if the iddah period passes the 3 months and one still wants to get married again afterwards, is it the same?
Yes. So the question is, a man divorces his wife. They want to get, so during the iddah period, if he divorced once or twice, he can just merely take her back with words, I take you back as my wife. However, if he gave 1 or 2 divorces and the iddah expires after 3 months, for example, can he remarry the lady, or does the lady need to marry somebody else first, for example? No, he can merely remarry the lady, but he cannot take her back just with words. There needs to be a new contract. Once the iddah expires and he wants to remarry her, he can remarry her without her getting married to somebody else first, but there needs to be a new mahar. The wali needs to get involved again. It's basically a new marital contract now. Right. We move on, inshallah. And then another case where a divorce, if a man uses explicit wording, but it depends on intention. is that if a man is forced to divorce. Right? We had a case once where a lady locked up a man in the toilet. A lady locked up the husband in the toilet. Now, until he gave now the divorce. So our scholars speak about imprisonment as a form of being forced, you know, because a man can't just stay in the toilet all day. All right, he needs to go out, he needs to eat, whatever the case may be. And the lady was adamant she's not letting him out until he divorced. And he gave the divorce so that he could get out, but he did not intend the divorce. He did not intend the divorce. He merely just said the words without intention to get out of the marriage, but so that he could get out and he can continue with his get out of the toilet. Now, so in that case, we basically, if I recall correctly, we gave the ruling that uh, the the marriage was still intact if he did not intend the divorce. Obviously, if he intended the divorce, even if you are forced, but you actually intend the divorce, then the divorce will fall. But in that case, because of the circumstances, we said no. But that's different to a lady insists, and maybe she says, if you don't divorce, I'm not going to cook for you again. And then unfortunately, that's not a valid forcing. We're going to speak about, what is considered a valid being forced, But sometimes for any small thing, we want to claim, no, we were forced, you know, because the lady has so much, control in the house, perhaps, that anything the wife says sometimes, and then we claim, no, we were forced. We were forced to do so. So that is not, it must be a legitimate force, right? Now, right. The next discussion is concerning also the types of divorce, but in relation to when is it haram, the time, meaning in the time that you give the divorce. It could be haram, or it could be not haram, basically. And this is when our scholars talk about that talaq is either sunni or bid'i. You have a talaq which is sunni and a talaq which is bid'i. So sunni generally comes from the word sunnah, right? And sunnah we generally understand to mean something that if you do it, you get rewarded for it. You're following in the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? But yeah, however, sunni doesn't mean that you get rewarded for it. Sunni just means the correct way to divorce your wife. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also went through divorces. And the wisdom in that him sallallahu alaihi wasallam divorce is to teach us, so that we could also learn that if we are to divorce, what is the correct procedure to divorce. So that is sunni. And bid'ah means that it is haram. That that type of divorce is haram. So what are the two types? And then we'll get to the third type as well. So he says here that the sunnah, the correct way, the correct time to divorce one's wife is that to divorce her in a clean period, first of all. So meaning, it is not permissible to divorce a lady in her haid period. It is not permissible to divorce a lady in her haid period. So first of all, you have to divorce a lady in her clean period. In such a clean period, غير مجامع فيه. Such a clean period which you did not have intercourse with your wife. So if a man divorced his wife in a clean period while she doesn't have haid, however, he had intercourse with her during that clean period, then it is haram for a divorce to divorce her even in that clean period. All right? And these laws, subhanAllah, we take for granted. Many people, we think they would know this, but many people don't know this. That if they wish to divorce their wives, they have to divorce her in a clean period in which he did not have conjugal relations or sexual relations with his wife during that clean period. All right? And then also our scholars say as well, he should not have had intercourse with her in the haid period before that clean period. All right? So obviously we know it is haram to have intercourse with a lady during her haid period. But hypothetically, if it were to occur, a man divorced his wife he had intercourse with her while she had haid. Then she became clean. When she becomes clean, he divorces her and he doesn't have intercourse with her in the clean period, but he divorces her. Can we say now that is a talaq sunni? It is the correct way to divorce? No, it is not correct. He must wait out that clean period, wait another hayd period, and then when she starts a new tuhur period, a new clean period after that, then he can divorce. Now, this divorces that we are speaking about, whether it is sunni or bid'ah or haram, in both cases the divorce will fall. A man divorces his wife during the hayd period. Is the divorce valid? Yes, the divorce is valid. The divorce is valid. However, he is sinful if he knowingly divorced her during that hayd period. If he knowingly divorced her during that hayd period. And our scholars discuss why. Why is it haram? So when is it haram? If you divorce a lady either in her hayd period or you divorce her in a clean period in which you had intercourse with her in that clean period, or you had intercourse with her in the previous hayd period, the prior hayd period. In those cases, it will be haram. However, like we said, the divorce falls. Why is it haram? So our scholars give different reasons, depending on the scenario. If a man divorces his wife during the hayd period, it is haram. Why? Our scholars say is because you are causing harm to the lady by prolonging her iddah period. How are you prolonging her iddah period? You see, if a lady is somebody who experiences hayd and she experiences menstruation, then her iddah period is what? 3 clean cycles. 3 clean cycles. And if a lady is divorced in a clean period, right? So just imagine a lady is divorced in a clean period, right? There was no intercourse or anything in the clean period. 3 days later, she falls out. 3 days later, she falls out. So that's one clean period counted, gone. She only has 2 clean periods left. All right? It could be that the man divorces his wife, then an hour later she falls out. He wasn't intimate with her. Didn't have intercourse with her in that clean period. He divorces her. An hour later she falls out. So she experienced 1 hour of iddah, and that's one clean period gone. She only has 2 clean periods left to complete. Then her iddah is done. However, if a lady is divorced during a hayd period, so she's divorced during a hayd period, so she has a hayd, and her hayd could be from 1 day to 15 days, all right? Between 1 and 15 days. So anyway, let's make an example. A lady is divorced during a hayd period. 5 days later, her hayd stops. So now she must go through still a clean period. The minimum clean period now is 15 days. The average clean period is 23, 24 days. So she must still go through another 24 days for one clean period to count. She must still go through 24 days or so just for one clean period to count. So there is a bit of an extension in her iddah period. And because of you extending her iddah period, therefore, it causes harm to the lady and it is haram. The other example is when, what happens if I divorce the lady in a clean period in which there was intercourse? A man divorces a lady, he sleeps with the lady in that clean period, and then he divorces her in the same clean period. We say that is haram. But why is it haram now? There is no prolonging of the iddah. Once that clean period expires, it still counts as one clean period. So why do we say now it is haram? Our scholars say because of it leads to nadam. It leads to regret. How can it lead to regret? It has the potential to lead to regret. Because they say, if you divorced her in that clean period and you were intimate with her, then afterwards you find out she is pregnant. Because now it's possible that she could have fallen pregnant in that clean period, right? She could have fallen pregnant. Now, if a person now finds out that she is pregnant, then he will have a regret. And if he possibly had done that, gave 3 divorces already, he would have no way even to make it up. He had no way to make it up. Then he becomes harmed, and the child becomes harmed by the child being reared by somebody else's father, or by the father of somebody else, whatever the case may be. You know, the wife, because generally the child stays with the wife, and the wife can get remarried, or he grows up by other than his own father, basically. He grows up by other than his own father, because if you are the father, there is certain care, right? There is certain concern that you have, and that can concern other men do not have the same concern as generally what the father would have. Yes, they would have concern, but the father generally has more concern than other males. So generally, it is better for the child to grow up by his father. And this is what our scholars spoke about already, thousands of 1,000 years ago and so forth. Subhanallah. Now, how it is important to keep the family unit together as far as possible, especially when there is children, especially when there is children involved. And the same reason for if there was intercourse during the hayd period, it will also be haram now. Then there are certain types that it is not considered sunni and it's not considered haram. It's not bid'i. It is in between. Right? It is an in between, but basically it is also not haram. It is also not haram. And this is when? This is if a man divorces a minor. So a man got married to a minor. Right? He got married to a minor, and then he divorces a minor.
One that day in the so when she becomes family, when does the iddah end?
Yes. This is under the talaq, which is not sunnah, not bid'ah. So we're going to get to when if the lady is pregnant. Now, when the lady is.
When he sleeps with her.
Okay. Okay. Yes. That's the question. Yes. So we mentioned here, if a man divorces his wife in a clean period in which he was intimate with her, then it's possible that she had fallen pregnant. So therefore we say it is haram. So what happens if he actually finds out that she had become pregnant? When does her iddah then end? So her iddah will end if she is pregnant on account of him, which is the default, because he's the husband. So if she is pregnant with her husband's child, then the iddah will end only when she gives birth. When she gives birth. So that is 9 months down the line, for example. Now, yes.
So if she was pregnant, would the divorce becomes void or still stay?
No, the divorce stands. The divorce never, once you give the divorce, there is no such thing as you can get that one divorce back. You had 3, so you used one of it, like when Aad uses the term bullets. You have 3 bullets. So now I used one of the bullets. You don't get a bullet back. The only time you get your bullets back is once you use all 3 bullets, and then only you reset.
During that, at least,
No, not when she falls pregnant.
she's pregnant.
No, not when she's pregnant. If you divorce her in a clean period, in which you had intercourse with her, all right? So in this clean period, you don't yet know whether she's pregnant or not. You don't yet know. There's a possibility of her being pregnant. We're still going to speak about when she is pregnant. What is the ruling now? So again, the one that is haram, you were intimate with your wife. In that same clean period, you divorced her, but it wasn't clear yet that she was pregnant because it's too early to know whether she is pregnant. However, because of the possibility of her being pregnant, it is haram because you could have regret later when you find out that she is pregnant. So the one is the divorce which is not haram and it is not sunnah, it is just in between, is if it is a minor. Why? Because the iddah of a minor is 3 months because she would not have experienced hayd already. So her iddah is 3 months. That is obviously if the marriage was consummated. If the marriage was consummated already. However, she doesn't experience hayd. Sorry, she's a minor. That means her iddah is 3 months. Her iddah is 3 months. The marriage was consummated, but she's still a minor. The marriage is 3 months. Or she is Aisha. She is what we call menopausal. She had gone through menopause already, meaning she's no longer experiencing menstruation. However, this meaning of Aisha here in terms of the Shafi'i madhab means she has reached the age of about 62 and she does not experience hayd any longer. So two things for a lady to be considered Aisha. She must no longer experience hayd, menstruation, and she must be 62 years or older. Alright? Then only her iddah is 3 months. Then her iddah is 3 months. There's unfortunately a common misunderstanding that as long as a lady does not experience hayd, even she is 40 years old, if the husband divorces her, then her iddah is 3 months. That is incorrect. That is incorrect. As we will get to the chapter of iddah, we will explain those things in more detail, inshallah. The next one is the hamil, the pregnant lady. If a man knows now that his wife is pregnant, it is no longer haram for him to divorce his wife. Why? Because there's no, you shouldn't have regret now. You should know now the consequences. You should know weigh up the options, the advantages, the pros and the cons, that perhaps you can see now if you're going to stay with this lady and you're going to raise the child up in this environment, this toxic environment, it's going to be more detrimental to the child perhaps, and then you decide to divorce anyway. You shouldn't have regret. As opposed to the time when you slept with your wife and there was a possibility of her being pregnant. And you know that she was pregnant, you wouldn't have divorced her. And you know you wouldn't have divorced her. So therefore it is haram there. But here you know already. It is clear that she is pregnant. Maybe she went for a pregnancy test already and so forth. And then despite that, you see no, divorce is better. And then it will not be haram. It will not be haram. The other lady, it's not haram to divorce her, is the lady who you gave a khula'. So if you give a lady a khula', even if she has hayd, it is not haram. A khula', you pay for the divorce. She pays for the divorce, sorry. It is not haram even if she has hayd. Why? Because she is the one who wants the divorce. It was going to be haram because you're causing harm to her. But she wants to get out of the marriage herself. Alright? So therefore it is not haram for you to give her the khula' even while she has hayd. And the
divorce, she pays for the divorce.
No, that's if she offers to pay for a divorce. So if a woman wants a divorce, she either perhaps asks the husband to give her a divorce, or she's so willing for the divorce that she will even pay for a divorce. Right? Maybe the husband invested, the mahr was maybe a large sum of money, and he's maybe struggling, and she's okay. She's financially, she's well off, and he could, for whatever reason, he wouldn't want to give the divorce, but if he's given a certain incentive, he would then give the divorce. So then she offers to pay for a divorce. If she pays for a divorce, that is what we call a khula'. Now when she pays for a divorce, then during the hayd, it is not haram. If she has hayd, it is not haram. However, if she wants a divorce, she asks for the divorce, but she doesn't pay for it. She doesn't offer to pay for it, and the husband just gives the divorce. Then the husband needs to make sure that she is in a clean period, in which he was not intimate with her. So the muqtali'ah, she pay even if it's a clean period and he had intercourse with her. Alright? It's a clean period, he had intercourse with her. And she pays for divorce. It is also not haram. It is not haram. And the last person that is not haram, even though she might have hayd, is the lady in which the marriage was not consummated. The marriage was not consummated. So the lady is in hayd. The man divorces the wife. He was never had intercourse with her. He never had intercourse with her. So it's not haram. Why? Because there's no prolonging of the iddah. When a man divorces a lady in which he did not have intercourse with her, then there is no iddah. The marriage immediately comes to an end. There is no waiting period. There is no waiting period for the divorce. Immediately the marriage comes to an end. If he wants to get married to her again, he needs to have a new marital contract, a new mahar, new offer and acceptance. Alright? New offer and acceptance and everything now. Then, so those are the people in which it's possible for a man to divorce his wife while she is in that uh, stage of her life now. And then the last, to round off the discussion, the author here speaks about dividing divorce in terms of its ahkam. Sometimes it is wajib to divorce. Right? And when is it wajib to divorce? So there's another ruling لِلَّذِينَ يُؤْلُونَ مِن نِسَاءٍ تَرَبُّصُ أَرْبَعَةِ أَشْهُرٍ. What time is Aisha? 22 minutes past. So if a man, inshallah we'll get to that, when a man basically promises or he takes an oath not to sleep with his wife for a certain amount of time. Alright? Then for 4 months or more than 4 months, sorry, then the wife, after that 4 months expires, she has the right to request the qadi to basically force the husband to either take her back or divorce her. To either have intercourse with her or to divorce her. And if the husband doesn't want to have intercourse with her, then he has to divorce her. Divorcing now becomes wajib. Another scenario which we already alluded to before was when there is a dispute between husband and wife. Alright, maybe there is some really bad dispute and they select an arbitrator and they put the affair in the hands of the arbitrator, and the arbitrator sees it fit for them to divorce, for the husband to divorce, then it is wajib for the husband to divorce his wife. Then that is one of the vehicles of divorce. And that's one of the vehicles ladies can especially use when it's a serious issue of perhaps of physical abuse and so forth. Then that is the vehicle at the MJC, for example, where they have an arbitrator come in and he could see, no, yeah, they have to get divorced, and then it becomes wajib. And if the husband will not divorce, and then they will divorce on behalf of the husband. No. So that's when it's wajib. At times it can be recommended when the lady is not of sound, her character is very bad and so forth. Then it could be something which is recommended because it could be more harmful to stay in the marriage. Other than that, it is makruh if the lady is somebody who is, there's nothing wrong with her and he desires her and he divorces her. There it is makruh. It is makruh. Now, and then the last one, can be purely permissible, and that is if the husband has no desire for his wife. There's nothing wrong with his wife, but he no longer has desire for her, and he finds it difficult to be able to spend on her, to make her nafaqah, while she is not really benefiting him in any way. Right? Because he has no desire for her. So now he's basically just spending, but he's not getting anything in return. It's not that he's only if he finds it difficult to spend on her, if he has no desire for her, then it's purely permissible for him to divorce, and it is not makruh. Now, there's a question.
Divorce by the courts and
Divorce by the courts. Does the divorce? Yes. In terms of marriages and divorces by the court. So first of all, the mere getting married in the court, alright, holds no weight in terms of Islam. You sign a marriage document there, does that make you married? No, that absolutely does not make one married. Alright? So in terms of the consideration is given to the Sharia way of marriage and to the Sharia way of divorce. If it is not a valid divorce according to the Sharia, no matter what the court says, alright, it will not be a divorce. And if it is not a valid way of getting married according to Sharia, no matter what the court says, it will not be a valid marriage. Alright? And unfortunately, we have people that give so much weight to, the court systems. All right. There are some people, for example, they insist though that community of property must be something which is valid and permissible and the correct thing to do because ladies need to get something, as if the Sharia's way is inferior to the way of the courts, to the way of the law of the land. No, the Sharia is always superior. The law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is superior to any other law, to any other way of life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's way that He has prescribed for us Muslims is better than anything else. And we must believe that. We must believe that now. So these quotes, if there's something contradicts the Sharia, then it will be given no consideration. If it is in conformity, and then it could be given consideration. But now, merely getting married or divorced in the court does not hold much weight unless it is valid in terms of the Sharia.
The wording of the divorce that he uses, they will not affect his sharing nikah.
If he uses explicit wording in explicit wording that is also valid in terms of the Sharia, and he uses that in the court, then it will fall. Then it will, if he uses explicit wording, and those wordings are explicit in terms of the Sharia, then it will fall. All right? Because they generally, you don't go to the court and you are forced to divorce. All right? It's different if you are forced by the courts, for example. But in the case of not being forced, if you use explicit wording that is explicit in terms of the Sharia, and he uses that wording to divorce his wife, then it will fall. Another thing, WhatsApp messages, writing is kinaya. It is a non-explicit form of divorce. The divorce will only fall with intention. However, again, this is not something that you should take advantage of and send your wife divorce messages, threatening her or trying to make her scared and so forth. Right? Because now a person could think, okay, I can send my wife a divorce and not intend it, and then the divorce does not fall. The only reason why I'm mentioning it is because ladies, if they are divorced in this way, they should always ask their husbands, did you intend divorce? Right? And if the husband refuses to let his wife know, because sometimes it happens, then that husband is sinful. He will be sinful because she needs to know, is she under iddah and so forth. What can she do? What can't she do? And so forth. So one should not, like I said, we should always use explicit ways of divorcing and not non-explicit forms of divorce. Now, inshallah, it is already Isha time. So we will conclude there inshallah, and we will continue next week بإذن ta'ala. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.